nothing wrong with a good cry. Some stuff. And this is one that I have no idea what the interest level in this is going to be, but I kind of wanted to do it just cause. And this is 10 movies or 10 moments in movies more that make me cry. And you probably would have caught on to this anyway, but I'll say it up front. A big part of me crying at movies now has happened since my kid was born. Prior to that, sad things would happen in movies, and it's not like I was going, I don't understand why people are crying. Like, I'd watch it and get in, like, oh, I totally get why that's sad. But it would rarely bring me to the level of actual tears. That happens a lot more now. And I'll kind of illustrate why as we get into number 10, which is The Little Mermaid. Now, this was a movie that I've loved for a very long time. This was my favorite Disney movie growing up. But now, the very end, just kills me. And that is when Ariel has her white wedding dress on. And she's on the boat. She runs to the edge of the boat. And her father comes up out of the water, and she embraces him, and she holds him, and she whispers in his ear, "I love you, Daddy." And that one hits me so hard now that because I have the soundtrack to this, even listening to the soundtrack, the music will hit the point that I know that that's what's going on at that moment in the movie, and I will get a tear no matter what else I'm doing. I have to skip that track if I'm listening to my music when I'm at work, because people will be like, "Are you okay?" So, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious why that hits me in the feels, but it's for all the problems that they had, for all the fighting, for all the times he didn't understand her, for all the times that she was overly defiant, and for all that in that moment, yeah, that gets me. And yeah, another pattern you'll notice, there's a lot of animated films on this list, because I don't know, they tend to get the feels that get me a bit better. I think maybe it's because animated films, more often than not, kind of sneak them in rather than make big set pieces out of them, which seems to happen in live action more. Anyways, this next one, number 9, from How to Train Your Dragon, is actually the one that I understand the least why it makes me cry, but it absolutely does. And again, that's the very end. And again, I can tie it into the music, although unlike Little Mermaid, it's not. That one was because of the moment the music reminds me of. This one, partially, it is the music. Now, the soundtracks to these movies, that first one especially, I adore. It's one of my favorite soundtracks of the last decade. And there's something about how triumphant the end of that first movie is. And like to a degree that I do honestly think that music and that first movie is more triumphant than almost any other film that I can think of, certainly any recent film. And it's not just the standard triumph like we beat the threat. It is triumph because, yes, they defeated the threat. They've overcome prejudice. Hiccup now is going to have to overcome disability, but we know he can do it because we've already seen Toothless overcome disability, and he overcame it with the help, and we know Hiccup will have that help. It is the triumph of a better future encapsulated in that moment. And, it's a cliche to say the music soars, but it truly, there is no other word. The music kicks in and it soars, and when I'm listening to this, again, not at my desk where people can see, I throw my fist in the air, and there's a tear, and it is just so energizing in the best way that it manages to get a tear out of me. And again, I don't entirely know why, but it does. So it's on here. Let's get off of animated films for a little bit. Let's get to number 8, Interstellar. And you probably can guess the scene because in addition to animation, there's a fair number of parental relationship moments on this list. So this is when Matthew McConaughey is watching the video messages from his kids and watching them grow and watching them have problems, watching them become disillusioned, watching them lose faith and not being there. That's the thing. I feel like the pain of that moment, especially the way McConaughey played it, because he played it brilliantly. It's not just about I missed so much. It's I could have helped. You know, he's watching these video messages of his kids and seeing how hard things got for them, and he it's just on a screen. He cannot reach out and put a hand on a shoulder. He can't hug them. He can't give them any reassurance at all. He just can't. And in many ways, those video messages are an encapsulation of every way in which he could not help them. And it's really well done. It's also the moment that I think in some ways kind of broke Interstellar as a movie for me, because I feel that's the emotional climax of the film, and it happens about halfway in, and it never engaged me on the same level emotionally after that. But that scene, holy cow. Next up, number 7, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It's not the death of Cedric Diggory that makes me cry, because the moment itself is actually played pretty quick. Which my memory is that it was in the books too. But the Cedric Diggory's death didn't really do much for me in the book. It didn't impact me greatly. But in the film, when they when they port key back and Harry and with Cedric's body, they land with that thud, and everyone erupts in cheers. But we as the audience know this is not a happy occasion. And it's what gets me, and you can see it even gets me a little bit talking about it. It's a combination of two things. It is Harry saying, I couldn't leave him not there. And then Cedric's dad, I don't even know the actor, but him coming down and screaming, that's my boy. Oh my God. Yeah, that one, I have a hard time thinking of too many other films that capture the moment of the pain of finding out that your child is dead better than that. So yeah, that one, oh man. Yeah, that moment really hits me. Okay, let's get back to animation. And number 6, ParaNorman. Again, the ending, but this one a little bit different. And it is, you know, because I'm a parent, but it's not a moment between a parent and a kid. But it is a moment with a kid, because Abby, the ghost, the witch, it's not, you know, getting her backstory, which was a pretty neat twist, but watching Norman interact with her and just realizing how angry this little girl is, how much other people's hatred twisted her, and to the degree that she doesn't even fully appreciate it, and he tries to make her see what she's become, and she doesn't want to face that. And a kid that age shouldn't have to face, I mean, a kid that age shouldn't have become something that where they need to face what they've become. So the fact that that has to happen at all, and then how much she does not want to see herself and remember and realize everything, because the anger is an anesthetic. You focus on the anger and the hurt doesn't go away, but you're throwing out a portion of it out at other people, and rather than having it all yourself. And Norman talking her down, I love that that's what happens, that he talks her down. It's not a spell, it's somebody connecting with her, which she obviously never had in life, you know, after her mother was gone, and definitely didn't have after that. So just the power of making a connection. That's That's powerful stuff. And something that'll be coming up again on this list. Number 5, V for Vendetta. This movie, I really do love this movie. There's only one scene that I don't like, and I might do a nitpick rant about that eventually, but this is an almost perfect movie to me. I really love this movie, but the scene that obliterates me is, and it's practically a short film, and it's the story of the other prisoner. Because Evie, has been captured, and she's in a cell, and she gets little messages from the cell next to her of this woman telling her story, and the story of love, of loss, of hate, and of needing to tell it so that somebody knows. And, the full details of what's really going on, honestly, I don't think diminish the power of this scene. Because the idea that you have to tell somebody, just so even a stranger, even someone whose face you never see, knows what you went through, what you experienced, your highs, your lows. Somebody knows your story. And the story itself is so sad. And it was at the time. It remains way more relevant than it should at this point in time. She just wanted to live. She just wanted to love. And the world around her said, no, you are not entitled to love. You're not entitled to life. And it makes me so angry and so sad at the same time. Number 4, back to animation again. Moana. And another concluding moment. Another moment about connection. As I've gotten older, I've really taken to films that are able to climax in something other than an action scene. I still love a good action scene, don't get me wrong, but if it can have something as intense that isn't an action scene, that isn't an action resolution, I really have come to appreciate that. And Moana has that so well, because after all she's been through, getting to where Te Fiti's supposed to be, and there's nothing there. Looking back and seeing Taka, the lava monster, the obstacle, the creature that they just had to get around. It wasn't even that they had to defeat or kill. It was just, we just need to get around this thing. Man, what a pain it is. And realizing what she was. And, saying, let her come to me, in the ocean parts, and Taka rushes her. Again, a bit like ParaNorman, so much rage, so much anger. And she just walks calmly to it, singing. And singing, this is not who you are. I know who you are. And again, the power of making that connection, and reminding her, you know who you are. And no one else can tell you what you are. And if you forget yourself, that's when things can get really destructive. And again, just the strength of that connection, the strength of that moment, and her basically calming a monster by saying, I see you. That, yeah. Like I said, a lot of recurring things going on here. Number 3, Summer Wars. This, I did an animation junkie on this a long time back. back when I was still using the green screen, and long before most folks were subscribed to me. And I kind of wish I hadn't done it back then. If I'd known the channel was gonna gain traction the way that it has, I would have saved it for later, because it's my favorite anime at present for a lot of reasons. But there is a scene that really, really gets to me. And so I figure this is one that probably fewer people have seen, so I need to give a little bit of context on this one. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but you'll have to just go with me on this. So Summer Wars, there's a lot going on in Summer Wars, but the main thing going on is a family reunion for the birthday of, a grandmother of this matriarch of this family. And there's basically a black sheep character who was raised by her, but is not her biological child. And he comes back and he disrupts things. He calls her an old bat. They have a very nasty confrontation. And he leaves. He storms off, gets in his car, gets stuck in traffic, but he's trying to leave. And she dies. She dies because she's old, she overexerted herself, and she passes away. And his niece calls him. And when he first starts talking on the phone, he's just kind of spitting anger. I'm not coming back. No matter what you say, I'm not coming back. You can tell that crazy old bat, and will you just listen? She's dead. And he stops dead. And the look on his face at realizing that for all the fighting that they did, there was probably something in the back of his head that always thought, we will come to terms with each other eventually. We'll make peace with each other. It'll happen. This isn't the time yet, but it'll happen. And now it can't. And at the realization that he can never reconnect, he can never have a positive sense of closure with her, and the way that just breaks him in that moment, he rushes back. How that just devastates him upon realizing that, you were too busy fighting to realize how little time you had left. That's that one was tough when I saw it for the first time, and it's become harder since my grandmother passed away. I had a much more positive relationship with my grandmother than these characters had. Like, they can't even compare, but that loss in my life kind of compounds the power of this one, because prior to her passing away, if I'd done this list, maybe this one would be a little lower down. It would still be on here though, but now, Yep. Okay. So top two. Next up, The Shape of Water. Again, the reason for bringing me to tears in this one is seeing the strength of the connection made between the lead characters. Because the creature is a character. It's not really just a monster. It's not just a creature. And the moment that gets me is when she's decided she's going to try and help it escape, and Richard Jenkins doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to help, very understandably, doesn't think she should do it. But she starts signing to him, and she insists that he say back to her what she's signing, so that she knows he is hearing her, and that he is not brushing it off, and that she has his full attention. And the way that she explains, he doesn't know how I am incomplete. He only sees me. He sees no defect. He sees me more completely than anyone has ever seen me. And the strength of a connection, when someone thought, for whatever reason, that they were never going to be fully loved, that they couldn't be, that there was something about them that made that impossible. And often that's not even like a conscious thing. You don't sit down and think to yourself, no one will ever really love me on a full level. You don't sit down and come to that conclusion, but for some of us, it's a thought that's there. It's a thought that can permeate, that, people can't see past something. They can't see everything that is you, and you will never connect on that level, and you kind of accept that. And then if you do, the power of that, again, the power of making a connection. I adore that, and I adore this movie. I think when I did my review of it, I said it might be my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie. It is. Like, at this point, it is. Doesn't have to be yours, but it's mine, because in addition to the usual grotesque beauty of what he makes, this just got me emotionally so hard. Coming in at number 1, the movie that made me realize that becoming a parent had rendered me a complete and utter softy. Because I didn't catch this one in the theater. I saw it on home video a little bit after it came out, and my daughter had been born, and it's WreckIt Ralph. And it's not strictly speaking a parental moment, but it hits me as a parent. And it is the very end, and I mean literally the last line of the movie, where Ralph is talking about, it's basically the epilogue. Ralph is talking about how things have gotten better. Things are working out. Things are going to be okay. And he says, and at the beginning of the movie, it said the worst part of his day was being lifted up to be thrown off the building. And now he says the best part of my day is when they lift me up. Because when they lift me up, I can see Sugar Rush. And I can see that kid. And the players love her, even with her faults, like I knew they would. And at the end of the day, if that little kid loves me, how bad can I be? And trying to say it, definitely watching it, you see what happens. There are few things more self-affirming than love, and the love of a child is it's that, but more. And that specific sentiment, because I think we all have our times where you wonder, like, am I awful? What's I know we catalog our faults, our problems, our failings, but at the end of the day, I've got this kid who loves me, and if I can do that, if I can have a kid that I know is this good, think that I'm okay, I cannot be all that bad. And that was the movie that made me realize that becoming a father really did turn me into a complete and utter softy, and that's why it has to take the number 1 spot. So there you go. 10 movie moments that make me cry. And every time. This is not a first time I saw it made me cry. This is every time. In the case of this entire list, every time I see it, boom. So yeah, there we go. Hope you folks enjoyed this. I don't know if it was a little too self-indulgent, but hey, I had to fill the time with something, so hope it worked for you. What is the moment in a film or a TV show or a book even that made you cry the hardest? If I were to reach back, at the first time I remember really substantively crying at something was reading Bridge to Terabithia in 4th grade. Ooh, that I wasn't expecting that one. But whether it was when you were young, when you were older, an old one, a new one, whatever it is, whatever your thoughts are. You want to give a top 10? You want to just give a number 1? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's share it. Let's talk about it. There's all the stuff to do. can support me on Patreon if you like the show and want to help maybe make it better. Well, that's, you know, there's stuff that's being worked on that is helped along by that. Plus there's Twitter, I got a podcast, links for all that stuff's in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.